November 1st, 1927. A sad day for the thousands gathered in the great city of Harlem. 150,000 people congregated at the Adolph Howell Chapel and packed the surrounding streets to mourn the loss of the great and young Florence Mills. She was just a youthful age of 31, as an unsuccessful operation for her appendicitis led to her unfortunate death. And so was the early termination of a beautiful, artistic, and productive life. Unfortunately, the following scenes, clips, and songs are not of Florence Mills, as there is not a single recorded clip available to date of her. A truly sad fact to think technology was just a few years too late. However, her great works inspired many and were mimicked and performed by others, a testament to her positive impact on the industry. January 25th, 1895. The world welcomed the Queen of Jazz, Florence Winfrey. Her parents, John and Nellie Winfrey, were both born into slavery, working in the tobacco industry in Virginia. Upon becoming free, the couple moved to Washington, D.C., where John was a day laborer and Nellie took in laundry. Neither parent could read or write. The couple strived to provide their daughters, as Florence was the youngest of three, with better opportunity, encouraging her passion, dancing and singing. At age 5, Florence made her first performance titled Baby Florence. The high point of her childhood was her appearance in the Road Company production of Bert Williams and George Walker's Sons of Ham. As a result of her success, the traveling white vaudeville team of Bonita and Hearn hired her as a performer. She, now 14 years old, moved to New York with her sisters and mother. Now residing in the Big Apple, young Florence formed a traveling song and dance act with her sisters called the Mills Sisters, and thenceforth, Florence Mills was her name. Her career escalated and flourished, drawing large crowds nightly. Later, she joined the musical group the Tennessee Ten, where she met her husband, Ulysses Thompson, aka Rubber Legs. He was a skilled acrobatic and tap dancer. Due to her continued success, she received an offer and accepted the lead in Shuffle Along, a show that opened in 1921 in New York. Langston Hughes was quoted saying, "The Shuffle Along initiated the Harlem Renaissance and inaugurated the decade when the Negro was in vogue." Despite Mills' popularity, there were songwriters that were not impressed by her flashy dance and beautiful voice. Songwriter Irving Berlin, a white man, was quoted saying, "If Mills were white, I would write her a song every week." In 1922, Mills was hired by Lou Leslie, a white promoter, to work at the Plantation Club, a very popular venue. Leslie managed to turn the shows at the club into a Broadway show called the Plantation Review. The show opened on 48th Street Theater in July of that year, and Florence Mills soon became a black performer with the potential to break the racially restricted show business establishment. Her success attracted more white promoters, such as Sir Charles B. Cochrane, who was interested in her for the stage in London. He brought the Plantation Company over in 1923 and used variations of the routine in the show Dover Street to Dixie. Despite her popularity at home and overseas, there was not only racial tension at home, but in England towards her and her black cast. After her tour in England, Florence returned home to New York and was invited to take part in the Greenwich Village Follies annual production. This was the first time a black woman was offered a part in a major white production. She turned the offer down, however, and decided to create a rival show, Dixie to Broadway, which opened in New York on October 29, 1924. Interestingly enough, the great Duke Ellington was beginning his very illustrious and noteworthy career as a composer. One of the very first musical portraits Ellington wrote was called Black Beauty, a song written for Florence Mills. When 1926 came around, Florence had achieved her goal of creating a major all-black revue called Blackbirds. She opened the show at the Alhambra Theatre in Harlem, then moved the show to London's Pavilion Theatre, where a grand 276 performances took place. The Prince of Wales was said to have seen the show more than 20 times, as Mills was now a major hit in London. Exhausted from work, Mills took an absence of leave, residing in Germany. She returned to the Big Apple in 1927, where crowds welcomed her royally. Unfortunately, she desperately needed an appendectomy, which had been apparently put off for too long of time. Florence entered the hospital on October 24th, 1927. Sadly, the doctor announced little chance of a successful recovery, and inevitably so, Mills died just 1 week later. Her death was a heartbreaking loss to the entertainment industry, and especially to the hopeful African American men and women. Her work would no longer be cherished, and truly so, as there are no records of her available. And yet, her legacy lives on, and it lived on then in the form of hope and opportunity for artists and musicians who were willing to face the tragedies that came with the triumph of being an early 20th century artist. For that was the Harlem Renaissance, after all, a time of trouble, but a time of great progress, and thus was exemplified by the great and wonderful Florence Mills. I'm a little blackbird looking for a bluebird too. You know little blackbirds get a little lonesome too. I've been all over from east to the west in search of someone to feather my nest. But when I find one same as you do, the answer must be that I am a hoodoo. I'm a little jazz boat looking for a rainbow too. Building fairy castles, same as all the white folks do. For love I'm dying, my heart is crying. A wise old owl said, keep on trying. I'm a little blackbird looking for